Hi, I'm Debbie Georgatos. Welcome to my show, America, Can We Talk? Today, on our Deep Dive Monday, we're going to talk about what kind of future America can choose in the 2020 elections. Specifically, we're going to talk about President Trump, new ground in North Korea, Portland protects Antifa, the lefties are AOK with spitting in the face in a restaurant, Democrat debates on America's future, Democrats' journey to socialism, and why can't everything be free? And then I'll tell you, my friends, why these stories matter to you. Stay tuned.
Debbie Georgatos, host of America Can We Talk, is an author, attorney, and political analyst whose mission is to inspire the American political conversation about preserving liberty in the best country on earth.
Hello and welcome again to America Can We Talk? I'm Debbie Georgatos. In the first five today, I just want to give short tribute to President Trump and his historic and really monumentally historic step into the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. This happened just yesterday, Sunday, June 30th, and there's a little video I'd love to show you and then just talk about it for a moment. So here's President Trump entering the demilitarized zone and actually shaking hands again with the North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un.
Good to see you again. I've never expected to meet you at this place. If you Excellency take a step forward, you will be the first U.S. president to cross this line.
I wanted to play that for a couple of reasons. Number one, even when President Trump was candidate Trump and running to become president, as well as all the time he's been president, there's been endless mockery and derision and scorn and outrage and concern expressed by the American left and by the media about whether he could handle foreign relations. That, he's too blustery, he's not experienced, he hasn't worked in the State Department, he hasn't been a member of Congress or U.S. Senate, he doesn't have government employment history, and he really won't know what he's doing. Now, I have to tell you, folks, I value all of the input that scholars can put in. You have people experienced in Washington, they've worked with different administrations, they work with different countries around the world. I'm not saying their input has no value, but what you're seeing right there, whether or not you like or don't like President Trump, you're seeing leadership. You're seeing bravery, and you're seeing the impact, the outcome of President Trump's willingness to do things outside the box, to be a little bit bold. Past administrations have, of course, everyone in the world pretty much feels threatened by North Korea. They have, what a truly irrational leader, seemingly, Kim Jong-un. He's executed his own people for minor offenses. The people are starving. There's all sorts of horrible things there. And within the country, and the people within North Korea are suffering. But President Trump has decided and took on early the idea that he was going to try to move the ball forward to try to get to a better place with North Korea, hopefully to get them to pull back on what they've been trying to do, which is essentially to create nuclear weapons. What he has done, President Trump has done, is recognize that China really holds all the cards with respect to North Korea. China has pretty much control over North Korea, and China is the country President Trump has been focusing on in his trade negotiations, really saying to China, you know what, there's a new president in town, a new administration in Washington, and for the first time, I don't know how many decades, China, you're going to stop mistreating America in our trade deals. You're going to stop all of the theft of American intellectual property, the forced transfer of intellectual property. You're going to stop all the things that for decades negotiators, presidents on both sides, on either party, and negotiators advising them always said, well, you can't really fix that. That's just how China does things. President Trump, having none of it, is actually being forward moving and bold dealing with China, which has gotten him around to the point to be able to have this particular interaction with North Korea. Obviously, the fact that President Trump is the first American president to step inside the demilitarized zone is historic. It's also obviously does not represent a solution to the entire issue to all of a sudden because President Trump has stepped in, hey, we solved everything. But it's a movement of boldness, and it's a movement of saying we're going to do things differently, and we're going to take on this guy, and to have a meeting set with President Trump and this North Korean leader to continue to try to work toward reining in a rogue regime is possible in part because of President Trump's willingness to do things, color outside the lines, do something different with China, be bolder with China, get China to the point. Maybe China is pressuring North Korea to say, you know what, don't mess with America. You know, you got to get on the playing field here with the civilized countries. You got to move forward. So all I really want to say about it is I think that the American left and the media were quick to scorn, especially the one comment I saw, Tim Ryan, I think he's one of the legions of Democrats running for president in 2020, had some comment, this was an outrage, this was terrible, he shouldn't have done that. You know what, the guy, President Trump, is trying to do something, trying to move the ball forward and showing boldness, leadership, and initiative, and I think that he should be accorded respect for that. And that, my friends, is today's First Five. The next thing I wanted to turn to, you likely saw over the weekend, or if you didn't, I want to tell you about it. In Portland, Oregon, there was a protest, a march. There was some group is marching, and the fascist group, kind of ironically, who's named itself Antifa, which is a shortened acronym for anti-fascist, the most fascist organization in America. Antifa decided to protest this other group. So Antifa is having a big rally in Portland, and in the course of that rally, they identified a person who is a journalist. His name, he has an Asian name, and his last name is spelled Ngo, and I looked it up, and so it's pronounced No. So this journalist, Andy No, was at the Antifa rally in Portland. The Antifa thugs recognized him and beat him up at the rally. I want to play first. I have several things I want to show you. First, I want to show you just the this little clip of Andy No. He was badly beaten. In fact, he was what they beat him with, and then they call it milkshaking, but they put some powdery substance. They mixed cement mixture in with it and threw it on him, his hair and his face. So I want to have you first hear Andy No's comments right after this, him having been mugged in Portland. Yeah, there he is. Is this the video going to roll? There he is.
I just got beat up by the crowd, no police at all. In the middle of the street, and they stole my GoPro, and he punched me several times in my face and my head. I'm bleeding.
Okay, he was having a hard time collecting himself. I want to explain something about this. Andy No is a journalist who has been outspoken criticizing Islam, the threats of Islam, and also criticizing Antifa for being thugs, for being fascists. And so, proving his point, the Antifa protesters beat him up. The scene of beating him up, I want to play that also and show you how bad it got. And I guess I'm going to make sure. Yeah, here we go. I want to show you the scene of what actually happened to him. This is what happened to him in Portland. Then we're going to talk about how this impacts politics in America. Well, go ahead.
Yo!
Okay, so first of all, I want to point out these brave thugs, who are part of Antifa, they all have black masks over their face. They do not show themselves. It's not like they're really brave at all. They're cowards hiding behind black masks and marching allegedly to fight fascism while behaving like fascists. Now, in particular, they identified him at this rally, and they don't like him because he has been exposing them on Twitter and on news stations around the country, pointing out that Antifa is a hoax. They are not truly anti-fascist. They are themselves fascist. So they beat him up in Portland. You saw the little video. I cut that video short where he was talking, but what he was trying to say when he was first being interviewed, I said I got beat up and they stole his camera. He also was talking about turning to the ambulance. Someone had called an ambulance, and so the emergency personnel arrived, and they're saying to him, you know, and it got kind of long to play for you, but they're saying to him, "Are you okay?" Asking him, "Do you know what day it is? Do you know who the president is? Can you say your name?" He was not. He was badly beaten. You could see his face. He's got cuts in his face, black and blue. He had to go to the hospital. He had a minor bleeding in the brain, according to his employer, from this attack. And they put this junk that mixed with, they're calling it milkshakes, some kind of substance mixed with cement mixer in his hair and on his body. And the reason this really matters to the 2020 elections in this country is this. The mayor of Portland is a radical leftist. He is just will not follow the law, will not, he's a leftist. And so this mayor was called upon, criticized by the implication. The argument was, it appears as though he told the Portland police not to interfere. He let this mob engage in this attack. And that may sound pretty far-fetched. You might think, well, what kind of mayor would do that? That doesn't really seem like something a mayor would do. But this mayor in Portland has a history. His name is Ted Wheeler. He's a Democrat mayor of Portland, Oregon. Many people suspect he just let this beating happen. He told the police to stand down. In fact, the extremely wonderful U.S. Senator from the state of Texas, Ted Cruz, is calling for an investigation. He thinks we have to investigate whether or not legal action should be taken against this Portland mayor for essentially telling his police to stand down, don't protect this citizen journalist, let Antifa beat him up. And if you think that sounds far-fetched, I want to remind you, this is the same mayor, this guy Ted Wheeler, Portland, Oregon, who last summer, when there was an Antifa protest outside of the ICE office, Immigration and Customs, you know, the ICE people that deal with immigration. Well, there's an ICE building in Portland, and the Antifa surrounded the building and were very threatening, and for 38 days, Antifa was protesting outside of this ICE office. They call themselves Occupy ICE, but it was Antifa. And in that time, the mayor told the police to stand down. In fact, the mayor's statement on that issue was essentially that he was concerned that he didn't want to be seen as in any way supporting the conduct or actions of ICE. So he's afraid of having his own police department do their job, you know, get after this ridiculous mob outside of ICE, of the ICE offices in Portland. He's more worried that he might be seen as supporting ICE than he is about having the police department in his own city do their job. So, as I say, Ted Cruz actually calling for legal action, which would be a great thing. And then, you know, on the broader note about, I said today I want to talk about kind of the future, what we face in our country. It is really important to understand how emboldened the violent left feels in America today. Antifa, Mayor Ted Wheeler in Portland is one example. I'll remind you again, back in Baltimore, when in 2015, after there were riots relating to the Freddie Gray incident, and the mayor of Baltimore first came on and said, and there was massive rioting in Baltimore after the Freddie Gray incident. And the rioting led to the destruction of many businesses, you know, breaking the front windows, burning cars, burning buildings. And that violence went on. And the mayor at the time in Baltimore essentially said she had told the police to stand down, let these people essentially let off some steam. So she wasn't willing to say, you know what, we have to follow the process here. We have to do the investigation. We have to do whatever the process is supposed to be legally to understand what happened with Freddie Gray, understand if criminal charges should be brought against anyone. And so, but she was willing to let a lawless rampage in her city. What happened after that was, a week or so after that, she was criticized, heavily criticized. What are you talking about? You're just going to let people riot, break down, smash windows, destroy businesses. She did come out with a statement that she was very saddened that this all occurred and that really was harmful to the whole city. She's right, because she talked about how the city had worked really hard to cultivate businesses to come into the inner city of Baltimore, to get a CVS in lower income neighborhoods so people don't have to travel so far to get prescriptions filled or to find other needs that you would find at a CVS. She made the point that people had worked hard to bring those businesses in to help build up the lower income community in Baltimore, and that lots of people work at those businesses in Baltimore. She said, what are they supposed to do the next morning? So she came around about a week later saying, gee, it's not really very good to let mobs be mobs. But this conduct, this attitude is being pushed and carried forth by the leftists in this country. Those are just isolated examples. The Baltimore mayor did it. The Portland mayor did it. But we also have the instances where we had numerous people affiliated with the Trump administration be harassed in restaurants, harassed on the streets, harassed in their homes, marches outside their homes. This is that left-wing mindset that says we are going to shut any opposition down. We are going to decide who in this country is allowed to have an opinion, who in this country is allowed to do their job, and in the Trump administration, who in this country is allowed to go out to dinner. You all likely recall, we talked about last week, I think it was one of Trump's sons, I think Eric Trump, was in a restaurant in Chicago, and a waitress spit in his face. We're going to talk about that story in a second because there's a follow-up to that story. But this Antifa violence is, number one, becoming really becoming pronounced. And then I want to tell you one more thing about Antifa, because you barely hear the American left ever criticize Antifa. I want to really kind of plant the seed today, and I'm going to keep talking about over the next weeks and months, the idea that the American left is agitating this violence, even though they don't take claim for it. I am talking about the leaders of the American left, not just the local leaders of the little Antifa group. The mindset is for America to be disrupted, for people to be concerned for their safety, to permit violence to occur. Next Antifa thing in particular, Antifa announced they planned to do acid attacks, throw acid in people's faces in a DC free speech rally, promising to blind the attendees. Now, I don't even know this was happening, but there's a group, a rally for free speech. They had one in New York City, one in San Francisco, and then this coming July 6th, so that's this coming Saturday, they have one scheduled for Washington, D.C. in the Freedom Plaza in Washington, D.C. is a hashtag demand free speech. So it's a free speech group. Antifa has threatened they are going to throw acid in people's faces. They have a website, they have people blogging for them, they have people putting these threats out there. You have to ask yourself where this mindset comes from. In America, we have political sides of the aisle all the time. On 1,000 issues, we have political battles, we have disagreements, we have the left versus the right, or whatever you want to name the groups. But what is happening in our country is the American left feels emboldened to tell the rest of the country, not just we demand that we win, but we are going to shut you up. We're going to make you afraid to march for free speech. And frankly, I don't know who this free speech group is. It might be a group that I wouldn't disagree with. I don't know. Maybe this free speech group is one that's got, in some unsavory connections to unsavory issues. I don't even know. But the point is, in America, you're allowed to march for what you believe in, and the other side is allowed to march against what you believe in. This is why we have, we had during Vietnam, we had the anti-war marches, we had some people standing up in favor of our actions in Vietnam. But where we are right now, politically and culturally, is we have a left wing in this country that feels perfectly, completely entitled to engage in violence toward anyone who dares to say we're going to speak out about something that and say something that the left doesn't agree with. They think they have the right to shut people down. That's what they think they have the right to do. So Antifa plans acid attacks. Fortunately, the city said, you know, we're going to have to put out some extra protection here. And back to Baltimore, one more thing about the violence in Baltimore that was sanctioned by the mayor was that Baltimore today is still suffering. I mean, Baltimore has, I was reading that the homicide rates, it's either first or second in the country. It's a massive, the center city of Baltimore has not been helped by this indulgent in mob crime, indulgent in protests attitude. Baltimore is still suffering. Well, Baltimore needs a lot of help. They need help with quality education. They need help finding jobs. They need help in positive ways. But they are suffering, and that mental attitude, that lawless mindset that is just gone wild on the American left. It is, and then my last point in this, and I'll turn to another story, which has to do with the restaurants, but when you hear every politician on the left at those Democrat presidential debates, all of them depicting America as a horrible, evil place filled with racism, filled with hate, filled with oppression. You'd think they were talking about some third world country next door to a wealthy nation. You'd think they weren't even talking about America. But the American left, especially the presidential candidates, spend all their time trying to convince people to feel like they are victims, trying to convince people to feel like America is deeply unfair, it's a racist country, it's homophobic, it's xenophobic, it's otherphobic, it's intolerant, and therefore the left, the leaders of the left, including people running for president, are fomenting anger and outrage, and they are feeding this attitude that Antifa is now carrying out. They are feeding this attitude. Oh, there's one more story. Okay, it's just killing me. But I got one more story that is an example of this. There was, I think it was the New York Times, actually ran articles talking about, I'm not going to find it quickly, Rats. The New York Times ran an article explaining to people, helping them understand better how you would dox, that is, expose people who work for Border Patrol, how to get their names out there so you can embarrass them, how you can dox them, you can tell people their home addresses. Instead of having, yeah, finally, good. New York Times publishes a detailed recommendations about how to dox Border Patrol agents. Again, doxing is putting your name, your phone number, your email address, and your home address out there in the world, encouraging people to protest you. This is, instead of having an intelligent, rational discussion about the differences in immigration policy and what, the New York Times and left-wing America wants and what current policy is and what should happen, instead of having an intelligent conversation, the New York Times actually ran an article, detailed recommendations how to dox Border Patrol agents. This kind of attitude among alleged mainstream media, although New York Times is the radical left media, but this attitude, it is feeding the mindset of ignorant people easily stirred up into outrage, people not tuned into facts, people not familiar with reality, are being encouraged by the New York Times. Go ahead and dox these people on Border Patrol. And the point, of course, is on doxing, it's not just so everyone knows your name and they say, oh, now I know so-and-so is with Border Patrol, this is where he lives. It is to encourage violence. You have to understand. Doxing is not just about embarrassing you. So you go, okay, I'm so sorry, I work for Border Patrol, I'm really embarrassed. It is to encourage these mindless Antifa-type thugs to engage in violence, to engage in intimidation. This growing mentality on the left that they are justified in encouraging Americans to be confrontational, aggressive, intolerant, that you don't have to let the other side ever get a word in. You don't have to let them talk. You don't have to let their views ever be heard. You can harass them in their homes. You can harass them in the streets. You can milkshake them, throw stuff on them that's got, cement mixed with whatever it is. This is not some fringe leftist group. This is New York Times publishing this. This is news outlets on the American left all over this country. And frankly, the mindset of the leftist that just says, You are entitled to have the policy answers you want right now. You're entitled to badger, humiliate, and attack people who won't agree with you. This is being fed by the top ranks of the American left, even those people standing on the Democrat presidential stage, because they're every issue that they talk about, every topic, every place they go is always about planting the seeds of outrage. They're always trying to encourage Americans to be outraged, to feel like they're victims, to feel like they're just surrounded by people who are being unfair to them. That is the point of left-wing politics in this country, to make people feel like victims. And folks, when I say we have a huge choice in 2020, the idea that this mindset is going to get deeper roots, is going to take hold, is going to be spread around our country, is going to infect and invade more Americans. This is very dangerous. It is profoundly un-American, profoundly unacceptable, and it is mainstream Democrat Party, at least at the higher levels of the Democrat Party. That, my friends, is a story on Portland and etc. Very quickly to add on to that. You remember we talked about the story last week where Eric Trump was in a restaurant called the Aviary, and it's in Chicago, and he went in with he was working there for the day, and he went in with some colleagues, and a waitress walked up to him and spit at him, spit at, can't speak English, spit at him, spit him in the face. So they had Secret Service there. They arrested her. They marched her off to jail. She, she said, I think she spent the night in jail, and then Eric Trump said he didn't want to press charges. But the point I talked about last week is, this is a young girl, again, with a left-wing mindset. This is a young girl, a waitress, who actually thinks, just because she thinks she doesn't like President Trump, she probably couldn't tell you one policy he has on anything. She probably would just have he's a bad guy, he's a hater, or whatever she would say. Has no clue what she's talking about, but she feels justified in spitting in the face of the president's son. And so you think, well, at least sane America, even restaurant owners would say, well, you really can't have that because you can't start doing that. But you would be wrong. Do you remember the restaurant, the Red Hen, which was the one in Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C., where Sarah Sanders went with her family last year, a couple years ago? And in that restaurant, she was actually asked to leave. They told her essentially they don't like President Trump, and they asked her to leave, wouldn't let her eat in this restaurant. That was the Red Hen. So and then that was last year. So then you have this waitress spitting in Eric Trump's face. And then you had, and this is what I want to get around to today, this attitude of the left that has no tolerance for anyone's views but their own. The actual co-owner of the Red Hen in Lexington, Virginia, the restaurant that threw Sarah Sanders out, this woman's name is Stephanie Wilkinson. She ran an editorial in the Washington Post essentially justifying people in restaurants attacking customers because they don't agree with them politically. That was the bottom line of her editorial. That, you know what, she said, hey, she used the expression, this restaurants are now part of the sound stage and the ongoing national spectacle. And, she starts out with an example of Cracker Barrel, which I had not heard about this, but Cracker Barrel, which is a chain around the country, it's often along highways and freeways. Cracker Barrel actually had barred a particular company from holding an event at one of their restaurants. So Cracker Barrel banned some event at one of their restaurants in Cleveland, Tennessee, because the event was some guy who is advocating for the arrest and execution of LGBTQ people. Okay, so clearly he's insane, whoever this person is. I didn't want to give him airtime, but this owner of this group wanted to meet at a Cracker Barrel to hold an event to say, hey, you know what, we should arrest and execute all LGBTQ people. Clearly insane, and I think it's a great thing Cracker Barrel said no. That's one thing. That's Cracker Barrel saying we are not going to stand with and allow someone who's advocating that specific thing, execution of people LGBTQ. Obviously a horrible person, horrible idea. But this owner of Red Hen, Stephanie Wilkinson, goes on to say, hey, same thing. She's perfectly fine with restaurants shunning anyone whose political views they don't like. And she, in particular, when you get to the end of her essay, her blather speak, at the end of it, she's pretty much saying it boils down to if anyone's affiliated with Donald Trump, you can do anything you want. I mean, she doesn't say you can kill them, but she does say anyone affiliated with Donald Trump, who she describes as administration that has made its name trashing norms and breaking backs. I mean, what does that even mean? She's just on a highfalutin outrage mode that she's saying, and clearly written in defense of this waitress who spit in Eric Trump's face. She's defending it. She's saying, well, hey, she didn't like him. And it's like her mindset is because she hates Trump, anything goes, any bad treatment, anything you want to do is okay as against Trump or anyone connected with him. And I just want to ask you folks, what kind of future do you want to have in this country? We're going to have restaurants labeled red and blue, and so you can only go in red restaurants if you're a Republican, or blue if you're a Democrat. What if you're a liberal? What if you're what if you're in between? What if you're an independent? Where do you get to go? I mean, this division of America and intolerance for people who are your customers in your restaurant, you're deciding because I know what you think politically and you support Trump, so you're out of here. This makes for a very ugly future in America, a very ugly future. It is fundamentally different than the Cracker Barrel example she tries to spring off of. Cracker Barrel was an event by some idiot who is advocating for the idea of rounding up and executing LGBTQ people. Clearly crazy, and that kind of event, I'm going to guess pretty much every restaurant in America would say no and, hell no. You cannot come here and do that. This woman, this Stephanie Wilkinson, owner of Red Ham, she's saying anyone comes in. They didn't have to be engaging in conversation. They're just coming in to sit down and have a meal. If you don't like them or you think they might like Trump or they might work with Trump, you can kick them out. No excuse. She makes does not condemn the waitress in the aviary in Chicago who spit in Eric Trump's face. She doesn't condemn any of it. Anything goes to do anything mean if you're an affiliate with Donald Trump. And my friends, this makes for a very ugly and bad country. Again, the example of the American left, no tolerance for anyone who will not agree with them on anything. Just the intolerance of the American left must be understood and must be rejected. And the next thing I want to hit are the Democrat debates. You may have watched the Democrat debates. I didn't watch the first night. I watched some of the second night. I didn't watch the whole thing. But I want to point out a couple of things, kind of the, a Monday morning after the Democrat debates. First of all, where they are, the most reliable polls right now have Biden way up, 33 points. This is polled Democrats from the Politico Morning Consult polling. Biden's way up 33, Sanders 19, Bernie Sanders 19, Elizabeth Warren 12, tied with Kamala Harris at 12, Buttigieg 6, O'Rourke 2, Booker 3, Yang 2. Anyways, all the rest have ones. And the point I'm getting at is, so after all of that, and people basically thought as soon as Joe Biden gets in, he'll kind of clear the stage. He may be doing that. He may be getting, kind of be seen as the grown-up in the room. But I want to hit a couple points about the Democrat debate and really, the trend of the American left. And a really great example is this. So there was a question in the debate asked of Kamala Harris, the California U.S. Senator running for president, former Attorney General in California. And they asked her, no, wait, I want to get first Elizabeth Warren. A question asked of Elizabeth Warren about the economy. And here's the Democrats' problem. As you likely recall, it's the economy stupid line was Bill Clinton's line when he ran. And that was actually a pretty long time ago, but Bill Clinton, and actually I think the line, James Carville came up with that line. But that was in 1992. It's the economy stupid. That was what the Clinton theme became, even though they didn't choose that as a slogan. But it was the economy stupid was their line. Well, the economy is going gangbusters. It's going gangbusters for every minority group in America. It's for blacks, for Asians, for Hispanics, for women, and there are more jobs open than people looking for jobs. Just everything is swimmingly going on in the economy. So the Democrats have a little bit of trouble with that. So here was the question to Elizabeth Warren. 71% of Americans say the economy is doing well. 71% of Americans, economy doing well, including 60% of Democrats. What do you say to those who worry this kind of significant change could be risky to the economy? I should explain the significant change. Elizabeth Warren has said, when she gets in, if she wins the presidency day one, she's going to get rid of the Trump's tax cut. She is going to raise taxes on the rich. She's going to reinstate a whole bunch of regulations, which everyone recognizes these regulations, having been lifted, have helped the economy tremendously. So she's going to bring back regulation, raise taxes. So this person saying, seriously? I mean, his question to her was that. Her answer, after she just heard them say 60% of Democrats say the economy is doing well. Elizabeth Warren's answer? She went on a rant about how the economy is doing great for a thinner and thinner slice at the top. Okay, 6 out of 10 Democrats, let alone 71% of Americans. So she's defaulted into her socialist mindset, into her, but this is my speech, I always do this, I don't deal with reality, I won't answer why the economy is so good under President Trump, I won't answer why cutting taxes obviously grew the economy, I won't answer why our policy is bringing jobs back here. She won't deal with reality. That's a good summary for all of these candidates. None of them could deal with the reality that the economy is good because of Trump policies, because Trump essentially is standing up for very simple, basic free market principles. Trump is proving that free market principles work, as they have since America began. The left they're all, on the edge of socialism. You have Bernie Sanders at least admitting he's a socialist, and AOC, who's not running, but gets more attention than many of the candidates who are running for president. But others are not openly saying they're Democrat socialists, but everything they argue for, they are socialist policies. And so this question, really, I was actually surprised that they got such an unfriendly question. Other answers people gave, Cory Booker goes off on his, I see every single day this economy is not working for average Americans. Dignity is being stripped from labor. We have people that work full-time jobs and can't make a living wage. Kamala Harris, the economy is not working for working people. I mean, I think everyone's going, what the heck are they talking about? But I want to make the very serious point that they have a very hard time this year, 2019 and 2020, giving the answer to the American people. They, the Democrats, have a hard time saying, what is it why would they change the economic policies that are obviously doing well for the country? But the reason the left and all of those candidates cannot stand the policies doing well for America is because those policies reinforce the limited government, free market, limited regulation, booming economy reality that Donald Trump is proving to the world and proving to America. And this is making them crazy because they've been telling people all along, free markets are terrible, free markets are horrible, and people starve. And there's no connection to reality in their answers. And so I just, this ongoing discussion of the economy and how the left can handle it, we'll do a lot on that. But I want to just do a brief little pitch about the Democrats' kind of drift toward socialism. In this country, we have, we've had socialism as taught in colleges, taught in high schools, as an educational thing. And a lot of Americans knew, especially, certainly the great generation before me, the one that fought in World War II, many generations knew that socialism creates poverty. It was as well known as 2 + 2 is 4. Everyone knows this. Socialism creates poverty. The reason leftists can't stand people understanding that is because all that the American left is about today is acquiring a bigger and bigger government controlling more and more of people's lives. And that is their MO, is their reason for existing, is their reason for arguing for the policies they do. It kills the left to recognize that freedom is bringing prosperity to America. So the Democrats, because they didn't want to, they can't, well, Bernie Sanders does, but most of them don't want to openly sell socialism. They don't want to label themselves democratic socialists because they know that kind of offends people. They start down a more subtle path. The subtle path includes creating the argument, making the argument to the American people that things that cost money, should be free. Things that are you need, everything you need is a right. Everything you need, like healthcare, housing, education, clothing, everything you need is a right. The American left is trying desperately to push America towards socialist solutions, and they don't want to go as far as Bernie Sanders has gone, AOC has gone, and just calling themselves socialists because they think most Americans still go, oh, I don't think so. At least educated Americans. The young millennials who like Bernie Sanders, we got to work on them, but most Americans know socialism is bad. But because the left doesn't want to bravely say they're socialists, what they end up saying instead is, you have rights that aren't being met. You have a right to free health care. You have a right to, name your thing. You have a right to affordable housing. You have a right to a job. You have a right to some form of universal basic income. You have a right to health insurance. You have a right to, paid family leave. When you have a baby, you have a right to stay home with your baby. They are selling socialism to America by instilling dishonest ideas, false ideas, frankly, evil ideas about what constitutes a right. Rights are things like we spelled out in the Declaration of Independence in the Bill of Rights, free speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, all those things. Those are rights. Things that cost money. If the Democrats can convince you that you have a right to things that cost money, then you are convinced you, the voter, must vote with the Democrats because they will fulfill your right. They will provide what it is you think you have a right to by taking other people's money away. They'll take away other people's money to pay off your college loan because you have a right to not have a loan and have debt. You have a right to health care. So the Democrats promise we will take away from other people all the money they have to give you free health care. And the list goes on and on and on and on, the things the Democrats are promising America. And this is the way the Democrats are making their way to socialism without being as bold and outspoken and honest, frankly, as Bernie Sanders is. They instill the idea you have a right to things that cost money, and then the only way to get those things is you, the voter, vote for the Democrat, and they will run out and put big taxes in place, take other people's money away to give it to you. That is redistribution of wealth. That is socialism. But they're making their way towards socialism slowly because they know, frankly, there are still enough Americans who realize how bad it is if they just announce it flat out. We're going to spend some more time, probably next week actually, talking about the way in which our culture was molded and shaped in the 8 years under Obama, and even years before that, molded and formed into a society that would be more amenable to socialism. We'd be more divided, we'd be more suspicious of each other, more resentful of each other, we'd be more demanding of each other. This is not just happening with Bernie Sanders springing on the scene running for president, and it's not just happening in this election cycle. This has been a long process to dumb down Americans, to have them fail to understand the abundant prosperity that we have in this country being inextricably tied to freedom, inextricably tied to free markets, capitalism, personal responsibility. We'll get more on that, but out of time. I want to just make one other argument, this why can't everything be free? I really urge you to think about this idea. If the Democrats say, if a leftist says, well, college should be free, and healthcare should be free, and the whole list of things they offer, what is the reason everything can't be free? I mean, ask your friends who are sucked in by this. Well, yeah, college should be free, and all the other things I seem to want in life, these things should be free. What is the reason everything shouldn't be free? Why shouldn't you get up in the morning and realize, well, I need some food, so I'm going to go up to the grocery store and just take what I want and walk out, and then I'm going to come home and I'm going to have a house and someone's going to give me this house. It helps people realize that everything that people pay for, they pay for because it has value. Someone had to produce it. Someone had to create it. Someone had to build it. Someone had to ship it. Someone had to build a store. Someone had to put the food in the shelves. Someone had to pay for the cash registers. They have to pay for the clerks to work at the cash register. Items things cost money. And the reason, for the same reason that a society would collapse, because if we said everything is free, is the same reason that all of this idiotic suggestion of the American left of making everything free doesn't work in reality. It just doesn't work in reality. If people are told, if you were told, no matter if you do no work your entire life, you'll have free housing, free education, free car, free food, free health care, ask yourself how many people might take the government up on that. Hey, why not? And so you realize you have to build in incentives to work. You have to build incentives in to earn. You have to build incentives in for those people who want to have success in life. They've got to find something to contribute to society. I mean, you start getting people thinking about what really is involved in an economy. The left is the last thing they want any American to think about, that the items they're promising you for free actually cost money and someone is paying for them, and that someone is not the government. The government has no money. A fundamental truth of life. Government has no money. The government gets money by taking away money from people who work hard to earn it. People and businesses. The only money the government has ever spent in all of its existence is money they took from other citizens and from businesses. That's where the government gets money. So when Bernie Sanders promises we're going to do entire college loan forgiveness, we're going to pay them all off, he's not promising his money. He's promising your money. He's promising your grandmother's money. He's promising your best friend's money. He's promising money that families work to earn. He's saying, vote for me, I'll take away other people's money to make sure your needs are met. This is the most insidious introduction of the socialist mindset in this country, and Bernie Sanders has it going on steroids pretty much, and it's up to people who understand this problem, understand the ridiculous nature of what it is he's suggesting, to be spokesmen in our everyday lives. Tell people, raise to people, tell them, you know what, this is simply that you can't have a country like this. Okay, last quick story, then we'll turn to why it matters too, and this is a 2-sentence story, really funny. California former Assembly Speaker Willie Brown, former boyfriend of Kamala Harris, listened to all the presidential debates, both nights of presidential debates, and said there is no Democrat candidate in the 2020 race now who's capable of beating President Trump. Very interesting. Kamala Harris probably not too happy. But anyway, Willie Brown looks at that, clown car on the stage and thinks, now these people can beat Trump. Anyway, folks, we'll keep on talking about the 2020 elections, but my point in today, to summarize it, is it's so important to understand what is the community, the society, the culture, the economy that would be created by the American left if any of the 20 of them possibly made their way to the White House. We could not, it wouldn't be America anymore if the ideas these people had got put in place. If they got the Democrat Senate, House, and the White House, we would not recognize this country anymore. They would destroy it. Now, very quickly to my why this all matters to you. Number one, Trump at the demilitarized zone. The media, lefties, and the State Department elites perpetually pontificate policy. I love alliteration. But they're rarely bold. They're always careful. No, don't say that. Like Reagan saying, tear down this wall. Trump confronts evil. Confronting China may be why North Korea is willing to talk. Never a guarantee of peaceful progress for humanity, but there can be acknowledgement that past efforts have failed. Nobody's reined in, North Korea so far, and the boldness to try new approaches, take new steps must be appreciated. On Portland descending into darkness and chaos, why it matters. Andy No, journalist who criticizes Islam and Antifa's violent past. Thugs in Portland beat him. No help from the Portland police. Mayor of Portland seems to be enforcing his politically correct definition of law and order. Same thing he did with the ICE-related violence in 2018. This is the beginning of the breakdown of law and order, when the government decides who they're going to let commit crime and let it go. Maybe it's time for federal intervention. The spit in the face is AOK with the left. Why it matters. The Washington Post and the Red Hen condone spitting on customers with whom they disagree politically. This is a culture unhinged from the Christian moral compass that has defined civility in America. Americans must care about this degradation of our, degradation of their culture. They must stand up and speak up. I hope that you will. On the Democrat debates, seriously, they're all in favor. No borders, no citizenship requirements. They're all talking that way in one degree or another. Folks, that is no America. This is why it matters too that these people don't care about borders or citizenship. They just can't get people in fast enough, fast track and become citizens because they see them as Democrat voters. Free healthcare, free education for all who enter, necessarily paid for by American citizens, taxpayers, because, as I said, the government has no money. Abortion on demand, up to and including post-birth. This is a culture of death. This is another reason these matter to a culture of death, not of life. A literal free-for-all is a catastrophe of chaos for all. It's the destruction of America. This is the left's goal. Start telling people. Last thing, why can't everything be free is the greatest question. Ask your liberal friends, why shouldn't everything be free? If our needs like education, healthcare, housing, debt relief can all be paid for by the federal government, why shouldn't everything be free? As Margaret Thatcher and words of wisdom remind us, the facts of life are conservative. Sooner or later, you run out of other people's money. You can't take reward away from effort and still get the effort. Socialism implants envy and entitlement in its citizens, removes hope, aspiration, joy, and ambition, just like we're seeing in Venezuela, Cuba, and everywhere else. And that, my friends, is America Can We Talk for today. Tune in every Monday through Thursday, 3 p.m. Central Time, where I come here and listen. We talk about America. We talk truth about America. I urge you to do that. Talk truth about America in your life because America matters. Talk to you tomorrow.
America, Can We Talk? Truth about America.